James Gleick, the author of the hot new book, The Information, A History, a Theory, a Flood. James, why did you write a book? Why have you written a book about information?
You're doing a show called TechCrunch.
No, that's not a show. The show is Keen On.
You're doing Keen On, but it says TechCrunch right behind you.
Yeah, and TechCrunch is the channel.
Okay. Don't try to deflect me. You're not doing the technologies of manufacture. You're not doing the technologies of nuclear physics. You're not doing the technologies of cooking. All of your technologies are about information, and it's so obvious that it doesn't need to be said. I dare say virtually every interview you do has something to do with information in its many guises. We are creatures swimming in a sea of information, and we all know it. It's hardly a secret. The information age that we're living in, that's been a cliche for 50 years. And yet, there's a story there that I felt needed still to be told. And part of it was a scientific story that goes back to this specific thing called information theory. And part of it is a story of how we relate to this stuff, even in the messy, real-time predicament we're in.
How did you start writing about information? You must have come up with a project. Where did you begin this remarkable study of information, perhaps the most important book written to date on information?
Well, thank you. And that was a problem. But I had a sort of starting point in mind right from my first conception of this book, and that was a particular year and a particular place, 1948, and Bell Labs. The year, coincidentally, when Bell Labs announced the invention of the transistor, and we all know what that led to, but also the year, much less celebrated, when Bell Labs saw the invention of this thing called information theory. A paper by Claude Shannon titled A Mathematical Theory of Communication, and then immediately after that a book, The Mathematical Theory of Communication. And within years it was being called information theory. And it was and is a true science of information. It was the beginning of the idea that information is a thing that can be mathematicized, measured, quantified, treated by scientists as an object of study, which is obvious to us. We live and breathe it, but it wasn't obvious before. So that was a turning point, a true turning point.
Was the Shannon paper, though, a reflection of our new information universe, or did it invent that universe?
Both. Fair question. So when I say that was my starting point, what I really mean is I started my book in the middle, and I knew I was going to. And really, I open with a little bit about Claude Shannon, and then leap backward in time, because Claude Shannon was, like every creative thinker, dependent on all the people who came before. I don't even need to repeat the usual cliche about Isaac Newton, who I wrote about previously. Claude Shannon's work grew directly out of, well, first of all, the environment he was working in, the telephone laboratory. He was not just a mathematician, but an electrical engineer, and he was surrounded by people who were consumed with trying to figure out how to solve problems of cramming something efficiently through electrical wires. But also he was the heir to an intellectual tradition that involved Alan Turing, the great English mathematician, and we see father of computing, and Kurt Gödel, and before them, people like Charles Babbage. And so I kept drifting farther back in time, looking for antecedents to Shannon's work.